Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life. Hey everybody, Brian Smith here with the Iron Team series and the Daily Influence. And we're starting to dive into book 2 and to the transition from finding our influence to being the influence. And there's a transition here, and one of the best ways I can start this journey off is actually reading to you the foreword out of our second book, which was written by my wife, Rene, who has been my life partner for 33 years. But it's interesting for her to share her perception of influence and how our lives and her life has been influenced by what's going on, and her take for everybody in our area of influence, in our thought work here at the I Am Team series. Her interpretation of what influence has meant to her. And I think it succinctly lays a foundation for us to launch into the next episodes as we journey into, well, influence and get into deeper levels of communication that we have as influencers. And each of us, again, are influencers. So I'm going to read this today. It's maybe a little different way of doing a podcast, but I think there's a huge, deep lesson to be had in hearing Rene's words as we start down this path. I met Brian 30 years ago while working at an auto repair shop. He was my boss, and eventually he fired me. In all honesty, it was justified, as I was a flaky 20-year-old kid who would rather goof off than go to work. What makes the story even better is that after he fired me, he asked me out on a date. And the rest, as they say, is history. And yes, I did. I fired her and asked her out on a date in the same phone call. When Brian told me he and our daughter Mary were writing a second book, I was honored that he asked me to write the foreword. So here I am, hoping to impart a bit of wisdom on what influence means to me. And here you are, hoping to glean a bit of knowledge about how your individual influence can benefit yourself and those around you. The advice I have for you as you begin this journey takes us back when I was first pregnant. I wanted to tackle parenting with a different philosophy than the one my parents had. Therefore, I spent both of my pregnancies reading parenting and self-help books. I stored in my memory what I felt was important, what spoke to me, and left the rest. One lesson that stood out, that some of you may already know, is to count to 10 when you are feeling emotional. Of course, this advice is great in theory, but can be a tough thing to do in the heat of the moment. Additionally, another lesson that struck out with me was to imagine that there was a camera recording my actions for a pretend audience. This advice was, would you then be proud of your actions in front of that audience? For me, pretending I had a fake audience worked better than counting to 10. As a parent, it wasn't always a fake audience. My children were always with and watching me, learning from me as all children do. However, this trick helped me so much that I began to use it in my everyday activities. I would ask myself, would my pretend audience like that I let the person at the grocery store with only 4 items in their cart go ahead of me when I had a full cart? Would my pretend audience like to hear me keep my cool while dealing with a difficult phone call? The trick helped me slow down and think, am I proud of how I am using my influence right now? If I felt good about the film I was producing, then I felt like I was on the right track. There was also an added benefit to my filmmaking. I felt really good about myself. I realized I was becoming a better parent and a better person. Ultimately, I felt like I was having a better influence on those around me. Then, on the other hand, if upon reviewing my film I saw that there was room for improvement, I tried to learn from it and push myself to be better next time. While I knew that my audience was pretend, most of the time I also had my children to think about. Then I considered, is my audience really pretend? It may look like people are in their own bubble, head down, stuck on their phone, but I also think that people keep an eye and ears open. Perhaps not all people all the time, but I am certain that I am not alone when I say that witnessing a disagreement play out in front of me takes precedent over my social media app and what my friend is eating for dinner. This is where the influence we have on strangers comes into play. I think people do pay attention more than we realize. Therefore, why aren't we all continually asking ourselves, am I the best version of myself right now? Now, you might be thinking, Rene, I don't care about what other people think of me. I don't need to please anyone other than myself. Well, I do agree that we shouldn't be overly concerned with what others think of us. That is not the point of being filmed. The idea that we are being filmed for a pretend audience is a great tool because there are people in each of our lives, in our areas of influence, who we want to make proud. You get to choose who your pretend audience is. It could be your spouse, your children, parents, God, favorite sports team, or even a room full of people like you. Your audience should be anyone who helps you be the best version of yourself. Ultimately, as you are making the film for, and it is you who needs to be pleased with your actions. At the end of the day, you're the one who has to go to sleep at night and be able to live with yourself. I don't think many of us realize the degree to which we influence others, or, for that matter, how long our influence may stick with them. For example, one of my first babysitting jobs was when I was in junior high. Lisa, mother of 3-year-old twins, was hoping to have 2 hours for herself in the afternoon, so I helped after school. From her, I learned about timeouts. Should one of the twins need a timeout, they had to sit in the stairs for 3 minutes, 1 minute for every year. This was my first experience with timeouts, and I love that discipline could be done calmly and without anger. Almost 40 years later, I still remember her and the influence she had on me and my parenting. The influence each of us portrays can be just as powerful. As I said earlier, we may not realize who is paying attention at any given moment. We may not realize that our influence could impact someone for their entire lifetime. Here I am, writing down Lisa, the neighbor I babysat for nearly 40 years ago. I'm writing about her now. I am positive that there are also people who you can look back on as being a powerful influence in your life, whether that be positive or negative. That is why, for me, my pretend audience, watching my life film plays such an important role in being the best person I can be. Alas, no one is perfect. You may feel that there are times when your film needs to go on the cutting room floor, but that's part of life. We can learn from our mistakes and failures and move on to be better. Only when we strive to learn and grow are we at our best. And only then can we be a positive influence on ourselves and others. It's exciting, right? Knowing how important you and your influence really are. At least I hope by now you can appreciate how your influence is the most valuable thing that you have. Now it's your time to shine. Show the world your powerful and positive influence. Get out there and start making a great film, one that you can be proud of and feel good about. Not only will you feel good on the inside, but you will most likely show someone what being cognizant of their actions and influence can do. It's really a win-win scenario. I hope you enjoy learning how to be a positive influence for your teams. I may be blessed or biased, but Brian is my favorite author of all time. I got a wink for that one. I really wanted to lay a good foundation for us to jump off into our next book and to our next series of discussions about how to be our best influence. And I just never call me proud, call me biased to Renee's work, but I just don't think there's a better way to introduce it than to hear her words and how our work has influenced her to write something really so eloquent and so pointed, yet so descriptive about the power of influence and what it has in our lives and how we can individually take control of our influence and understand it better and do better things with it. I hope you got that takeaway also from her words, and I hope that they help prepare for what's coming as we dive into being the best influence we can be. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.